from Shannon, do something. And they were absolutely right. We must do something.
Dayton shifts the gun debate. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Jesse Balmert, State House reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer, Kathy Kandinsky, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Terry Casey, Republican strategist, and Sam Gresham of Common Cause Ohio. When it comes to ranking the nation's worst mass shootings, the 9 people killed in Dayton does not even rank among the worst 25. But last weekend's tragedy, combined with the one in El Paso hours earlier, are shifting the gun debate. A 24-year-old man armed with an assault-style white rifle opened fire, and within minutes in Dayton's Oregon neighborhood, he killed 9 people and wounded 27 others. Police rushed toward him and shot and killed him before he could kill more. The shootings again prompted calls from Democrats to tighten gun laws.
What do you see in D.C.? You see a lot of nothing happening on a lot of stuff. And common sense gun reform is definitely an example where nothing's happened. So yeah, we want something to happen there too.
Republicans are also urging action. Congressman Mike Turner of Dayton tweeted he now supports restrictions on assault-style weapons as well as red flag laws. Terry Casey, is the debate shifting? Are Republicans coming around to what some call common sense gun rules?
I think there's been a lot of movement in the last week. On Friday today, the president was pretty clear. He's supportive and is going to say to the NRA, we need to do some reasonable, appropriate kind of things. Mitch McConnell, other people are moving. Clearly, we've had some leadership in Ohio, and Mike Turner, who's a former mayor of Dayton, now a congressman, his movement, Senator Lindsey Graham, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So I think there's been some progress, and also it's important to give some credit to the Dayton police, because fortunately they had both a presence and they properly acted quickly to end the shooter's what he was doing.
So, Jesse, is it because this happened in our backyard that guys like Mike Turner and even Rob Portman, although he was a little bit more nuanced in his statements, shall we say, are coming around to some of these rules?
I think if it was because it was in our backyard, there might have been more movement after Chardon or after the shooting in Cincinnati at the Fifth Third building in their lobby. But I do think there is movement in part because it happened in Dayton, in part because also there was this El Paso shooting shortly before. Even recently, there was a shooting at the Garlic Festival in California. I was on a panel earlier this week, and they just talked about one situation after the next. So I think just the buildup of this all, and with President Trump being willing to, discuss this and call for some things, is moving the needle a little bit.
And it did hit close to home for Mike Turner. His daughter apparently was across the street from where the shooting happened. So.
You sense a real feeling of unity on this one in Ohio anyway, with the governor, with the representative on the Republican side, and then the Democratic mayor and Democrats in the House and Senate. You feel like something might actually happen this time.
Well, deja vu. This is deja vu. Every time one of these happens, we go through prayers and wishes. Nothing's going to happen legislatively. Now, I'll give one person credit, the governor. His 17-point plan is basically good sense. Yeah. And the approach that he wants to take, I think it makes sense. But is that because it happened here? I mean, Kasich did this after Parkland. Yeah, but I think the reason it happened here is because they said, do something. And those people kept chanting, do something.
Terry, you mentioned the police officers were there, and they did. They shot this guy within less than a minute, I think.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
But doesn't that kill the argument that the only way to stop a good guy with a gun is a bad guy with a gun? There were 3 good guys with guns, and the guy still killed 9 people and wounded 27 others.
Thank you.
Well, there's clearly a lot of issues. Rob Portman also made the point, and it's true in the Dayton situation. You had a suburban school district and suburban police that knew this guy was a problem. Now, the difficulty is medically, you can do a blood test, you can do a CAT scan on certain things, and you know whether you have a problem or not. On mental health, there's a lot more grayness there, but clearly, I think as government, federal and state, move more, it's going to be better, easy to identify people with problems and take the guns away.
Poppycock. Now let me say that. If they had to throw rocks, those people would still be alive. He did not need a gun with 100 ammunition clip on. No way on God's earth should he have had access to that type of weapon. Mike said it. They killed him in 24 seconds, but he still killed 9 people, wounded 12 more. There is no reason you need a weapon like that on the streets of America.
So what's your answer, Sam?
Ban them.
Everybody's guns, take them away?
No, I didn't say take their guns away. I said certain type of weapons you ban. You don't need a 100-clip magazine. You don't need a murder weapon. You don't need an AR-15. You just don't need those.
The political reality is that you're never going to get that passed through Congress.
But Mike Turner, he came right out and said, high capacity. That,
I still don't think you're going to get it passed through Congress.
And the high capacity, part of the problem is people who modify them or people who sell those kits. And also in some of the discussions, the doctors made the point, all bullets are not equal because some of these high velocity bullets are even more
hollow points.
Right, they're
are
even
worse.
more dangerous and treacherous.
You make a good point. And I'm going to tell you about 1619, when my people were slavers.
Okay.
And they said, we're going to get out of slavery one day. And guess what? We got out of slavery. I'm going to bet you I won't be around. God, I won't be around. I'd love to be able to see it. All these things are going to be banned because they don't make good sense.
it's going to take 225 years?
Yes. If it takes it, it takes it. Because they don't make sense.
All right. As we heard at the top of the show, Governor DeWine did hear the chance of do something. He is proposing that 17-point plan to try to stop or at least slow gun violence. He proposes a so-called red flag law that allows police to confiscate guns from people at risk of violence. He wants to expand background checks to all gun sales, ones on the internet, private sales at gun shows. He would exempt family-to-family gifts. He calls for tougher sentences for illegally possessing, selling, or using a gun. He wants to change the system to free up beds in psychiatric hospitals for the seriously mentally ill. And he wants to use the new state budget to target money toward mental health services.
But I believe in my heart that each and every one of them will help. Each and every one of them will lessen the chance of violence. Each and every one of them will make this a better state and make this a stronger state.
This is more comprehensive than former Governor Kasich proposed about a year ago or so. But some of the things are the same. Will lawmakers act on this one, do you think, Jesse?
Well, as far as the red flag law goes, there are a few differences, and they're slight, but I think they're important. First, on the when people's firearms would be removed from them, John Kasich's plan would have had it happen immediately. The proposal that Governor DeWine talked about earlier this week would have it happen after a hearing that would happen within 3 days. There's a slightly higher threshold for removing someone's guns than in John Kasich's plan. So that's kind of the policy element. But then I also think you have to look at the personalities. And towards the end of John Kasich's tenure, he did not have a lot of rapport with the GOP-controlled legislature. He did not have a lot of rapport with the gun groups. And I think the fresh slate that Governor DeWine has will help him in pushing forward a piece of legislation like
And I think it's very smart that he's got John Husted being the point person with the legislature. John Husted being a former House Speaker, being a former state senator, and I think they've deliberately reached out to some of the gun groups to say, how do we build consensus? So I think there's a lot more reason for optimism because...
my question is there going to be a willingness to expend political capital on this fight? Because that's what it's going to take.
Larry Householder was not at the event, from what I could see.
Indeed.
Larry Albahoff was. Even the Buckeye Firearms Association was in the room. But Larry Householder, who famously had that ad where he shoots a television screen, he ran for re-election last time around. He's the guy in the House they got to convince to do some of these things. How hard is that going to be, Kathy?
It's definitely going to run into mixed reaction in the legislature, and you're going to have to get Householder on board because he's obviously a key player, and I think it's going to be an uphill battle.
Any chance he does that, Terry?
No,
Householder,
absolutely not.
Well, Householder is very smart and savvy, and how he got to be Speaker, how he worked with Democrats, how they did the budget. He's the kind of person that the governor did chat with him, and he's also kept his powder dry, so to speak, literally and figuratively. So I'm still pretty optimistic that something reasonable and effective will actually get
I'll
passed.
bet you $5 they ain't gonna pass. No, excuse my poor grammar, but they're not gonna pass anything.
Well, wait a minute.
Well, they'll pass something, Sam. I'll take that back.
Democrats have a little bit of leverage on him. Couldn't they force him to take the red flag law?
It won't be anything substantive. That's my problem. I think one dimension of this discussion I want to make sure put on the table is that people don't understand that people have become targets now. It's not an intellectual discussion. My people feel that they are targets. 4 of those people killed in Dayton were African Americans. Now, people are going to say there was no race-based element, circumstances, they were there. But people in Dayton tell me those people were not necessarily accidental. Spanish-speaking people feel that they're targets because the predators feel they have a right to shoot us.
But how does that advance the legislation?
Well, I'm not talking about that dimension. I'm talking about the dimensions of my existence and other people of color's existence. See, when that lady said that in Texas, it resonated with me so powerfully because I am a target for somebody who walks into a Walmart simply because I'm black.
So does Donald Trump have to say we support some regulations to sort of, because, you know, he's been blamed for fueling at least the gunman in Texas.
But
His
the president
thoughts?
was saying today that he was supportive and thinks that they can get something done. But I think there's a consensus developing of a need to do something, and that's why I'll be happy to take your $5 when
I'll give it
it
to you.
passes the Ohio General
I'll give it
Assembly
to
and
you.
signed by the governor.
I do think there's another element here, which was the background checks on more gun sales, including those at gun shows and online, like you mentioned. There is a ballot group that is working to put that before voters or before the lawmakers and then before voters on the 2020 ballot. And I think that is a factor that could move some folks to act, because people who would vote on that in 2020 who might feel passionate about it are those kind of suburban voters, women, mothers.
That's a wedge issue. We can get people out to vote.
And I think that will affect the vote in a presidential election. I think that's going to be in the back of the minds of lawmakers.
90% of Americans support expanded background. 87% of gun owners support expanded background checks. And in the past, lawmakers have not acted, and the voters have changed the law,
Right.
and lawmakers haven't liked what they've done. So that could be a factor here.
But on background checks, you've also got to change some of the culture, because remember the shooting in Texas involving the military guy with his problems. The military had failed to put into the system the guy's problems. So we've got to improve some operational things and also toughen up some of the laws to make sure when people have problems, it's both reported and it gets put into the system so you know this person is a problem.
Mike just said something that really sinks in my soul. 90% of Americans want something done. 85% of Republicans want something done. And our legislative body is paralyzed because it is so corrupt.
Well, this goes to the power of the NRA and the Ohio Buckeye, the Buckeye Firearms Association, the more powerful gun rights organization in Ohio, is working with the governor on this. I don't know how much, but they said they were open to talking about it. In the past, they may have just said, you know, no regulations at all. Is that how extraordinary is that, Kathy?
Yet to be seen.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. It's not what they say; it's what they do.
And the NRA, if you look at it nationally, they've got a few internal problems with their membership is not growing, in fact, is shrinking, and then their executive director's under pressure of his $2,000 suits and some of his
All
other
chickens
spending.
come home to roost.
But the Ohio Gun Owners Association, the other gun rights group, said that this is the press release within hours after the Dayton shooting says, anti-gun activists are thrilled, in all caps, as they always are, that innocent lives have been lost, as now they can peddle their blood and call for the total destruction of your Second Amendment rights. That was an fundraising email from Ohio Gun Owners. That crosses a line, wouldn't you say, Terry? I don't think liberals were thrilled in capital letters over the Dayton
There's a
shooting.
lot of people, left and right, who said some pretty stupid kind of things.
What did the people on the left say that was stupid?
Well, when they attack somebody for name calling by name calling themselves, And that's
Who'd
not.
they name call? I'm sorry, Michael.
It's okay.
Well, you know,
Debate's
you
good.
know who they were calling.
Who did they call? What did they call the president? What did they say? Sherrod Brown and Mayor Whaley did not say anything negative other than what
But
politicians
some of your
would do.
presidential candidates were trying to get from 0.5% up to 2% by figuring if they attack the president, that gets them points.
So looking at this 17-point plan, Jesse, that's a lot of points, first of all. Does Mike DeWine say all or nothing? Because you could see how they could pick out the mental health issues and leave the gun regulations aside and say we've done something. Would he ever say you cannot pass the mental health improvements without some kind of gun restriction reforms?
Well, if you followed Mike DeWine's career, he's a big fan of many point plans. And so a portion of these were already in the budget.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, money for things like school counselors, which might have played at least a helpful role in the situation with the Dayton shooter. There are things like opening up beds at mental health hospitals. I think we all agree that this red flag thing and the background checks are going to be the biggest lifts, and he's going to push for them all. But as Kathy said before, there's going to be a lot of political capital that's going to have to be expended on this topic.
So do we have 17 points to try to bury the more controversial points, to say we're doing this comprehensively, not just picking on gun owners? Is that one of the strategies here?
Perhaps, but I think he was trying to be comprehensive and not have it all hit on one particular point.
I think it was being strategic. If you can't get 17 things, you can't get 2 or 3 things done out of 17. My God, man, what does that say about you?
Ask big and then, gets
Right, I've done that before.
right.
Some of them are easy, toughen laws on illegal gun possession. I mean, toughen sentences. I mean, that's.
And also what you do in Ohio is very important, but we also need some federal action because right here in Columbus, it's 2 hours to the West Virginia border and 2 hours to the Indiana border. So what Ohio does is important, but what the nation does is also important.
So does that mean Ohio shouldn't do anything?
No,
just to
no,
make your point?
no. There's things you could do because I think to Ohio's credit and Mike DeWine's credit, we're getting some national attention that Ohio's being a leader in trying to work forward and improve some things.
I have to give you our governor credit.
Well, finally, you're saying some good
No,
things.
I've said some good things about him on this show.
Yes, I know.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't lay that on him.
That's right.
All right, our next topic. When a private person or a company does something wrong and harms someone, they can be held liable. They can be sued. Government entities, for the most part, cannot be sued. The Ohio Supreme Court this week reaffirmed sovereign immunity. It ruled that the family of OSU student Reagan Tokes cannot sue the Ohio Department of Corrections for failing to monitor her killer, Brian Goldsby. Goldsby was on parole at the time he kidnapped, robbed, raped, and killed Tokes in 2017. Kathy Kandinsky, I know it's a very complicated issue, but why can't we sue the government if they really mess up?
I'm not a lawyer.
I know, you're not a lawyer.
You just play one. on television.
I'll try my best. Sovereign immunity gives the state a broad liability in cases like this. There's some exceptions. They can't be held liable for wrongdoing, and the rationale behind it is that ultimately taxpayers are going to have to pay for these mistakes, so they're protecting taxpayers. That's the rationale. But there are some exceptions, very limited, and the burden is on the plaintiff to overcome, so it's really difficult.
And really, we ought to give the blame back to the British because it's English common law that says the sovereign is immune. So we've continued, rightly or wrongly, that tradition.
I think they were even more blunt. They said the king can do no wrong. That's exactly.
The king did some wrong. That's why we
Well, they
said
couldn't
The
sue
president
got
who
out of
says
there.
that now. The president can't do no wrong.
Should it be changed? Should it be? I mean, one of the arguments is also that the government is the law, so you can't accuse it of breaking the law, then they has to judge it. It's kind of a vicious circle, How can you break your own law and enforce yourself for breaking your own law, and the
Michael,
law
there-
gets nullified?
There's some things that are so egregious. Somebody needs to pay.
And this case was really a sad one because they were supposed to monitor the person. Well, they were monitoring, but they weren't doing anything when clearly there was some problems with this individual. So, it's good that attention's been brought in this case because when people are on probation, they ought to do more than just have a computer make it a record. They need to really watch it and run up a red flag and say there's a problem.
Was this the right case? Because, yeah, the government should have been monitoring him better. He did have an ankle bracelet. He'd only been on parole for a few months, I believe. And whether he should have been let out, whether they should have been monitoring the ankle. But ultimately, it was him who committed the crime. So,
Court found that the prison officials did not have a duty to protect the victim in this case.
because it wasn't the government who killed this woman, it was.
They didn't have a duty to make sure that the man was complying with the rules that they set out?
That's what the court found, yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'm
it's
with
one of
you,
those,
Sam.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that just the average person looks at and says, hey, I feel like we should be able to do something about this
Yeah.
situation. And so it'll be interesting to see if this is addressed in any way.
There are cases. I mean, the one that we've heard about recently because of the film is the Central Park Five. They sued. They got 40 some odd $40 million.
Right.
So there are cases where you can get some money from the government, from the city of New York, in that case.
What was that? Wrongful?
Wrongful imprisonment and wrongful conviction,
Yeah, wrongful
yeah.
imprisonment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like they didn't do that. But the idea of what this young man did, he needs to pay for that. And I want to make sure that people understand I'm a liberal, but I'm not crazy. Okay. People do need to suffer who do bad things.
And this guy did really bad things.
Yes.
I understand. Tim.
Really bad.
But it didn't extend to the police who were in charge with overseeing his parole.
Well, I think they failed,
Yeah.
but that's another discussion for another time.
All right. Because her district is so gerrymandered, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty of Columbus likely will not face a big-name Republican opponent, but she's not getting a free pass. She faces a primary challenge from the far left. 36-year-old Morgan Harper will challenge the four-term incumbent in the Democratic primary next year. Harper is a Green New Deal progressive in the mold of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She supports Medicare for all, free college tuition, abolishing ICE, and reparations for descendants of slaves. This week, Harper picked up the endorsement of the group that recruited Ocasio-Cortez to run for Congress in New York City. Sam Gresham, what do you make of this campaign? Is Joyce Beatty in any way vulnerable here?
This is not a wannabe. If you look at this woman's track record, and then the Justice Democrats, Democratic Justice, joins the campaign. No. I put my feelers out in the committee. Nobody really knows her, and the people who know her don't know that much about her. But I also picked up a strategy for them. This is not a one-off. If she doesn't win this time, the word is she's getting her name ID out there so she can run again, and that the group that's behind her are serious. I think the culture of Columbus will support Representative Beatty, and particularly the middle class and above African Americans. But I think there's some working class and poor people who are not sure where their support is going to end up. Now, my understanding, she's a grassroots organizer, so we may see some things we haven't seen from typical candidates who oppose Democrats in primaries.
I'm going to shorten what Sam just said. This is not Queens, New York, and we don't have that many far-out liberals. So she'll spin her wheels, she'll get a little bit of media attention, but Joyce Beatty's going to get renominated and reelected.
Ohio State campus, much of the district is in Ohio State. Will they come out in a primary? That's what they
Depend on how they organize.
But in a March primary, it's awfully tough to get turnout.
Especially on St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the election is, the primary is on St. Patrick's Day.
What is it? It does say that there is this. It's an illustration of this divide: older, younger Democrats, moderate versus progressive Democrats. Not that Joyce Beatty's a conservative; she's certainly liberal in many of her positions. But
She's moderate.
but she's the old guard.
Right.
Yeah, it's a bit of a microcosm of what you're seeing on the presidential race scale, but it is just very hard to unseat incumbents on both
Yes.
the Democratic and Republican side, and with Joyce Beatty's name recognition. But I do think you see this debate playing out in the Democratic debates on just, where does the party need to be? Who do they need to be appealing to?
Don't
There's a
ask
real
Joe Crowley that. You know who Joe Crowley is.
Yeah, but that was Queens.
Remind us.
This
Oh,
is
yeah, the guy who-
Columbus. This is,
Not really.
and again, this
sorry,
this
Kathy.
is Columbus, Ohio. It's more
And
of a middle of
Columbus,
the road
Ohio is
town.
changing. You best believe
It's not
it.
changing that much.
You best
I
believe.
was just going to add that the candidate, she represents people that want more that are tired of incremental change, that want more drastic change to come. And it'll be interesting to see how much support she picks up.
Any chance a Republican puts his or her name into the race just in case
Oh,
this
they'll-
woman beats Joyce Beatty and they can run against the far left liberal in this
Well,
heavily Democratic district?
There'll be a Republican running, but Republicans are going to be more focused on districts where they got a better chance or there's bigger need.
All right, time now for our final parting shots of the week, our off-the-record comments. Sam Gresham, you're up first.
I think the shootings that have occurred in this country in the last few weeks tell us something about our country, and it's something we need to improve. I hope legislators and leaders can find ways to get guns off the street.
Terry.
Ohio's richest man, who lives in central Ohio, was back in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. In fact, today, Vanity Fair, Bloomberg, and particularly New York Magazine summed it pretty well. If Jeffrey Epstein stole from Les to Wexner, why didn't Wexner either file charges or suit? So this issue, I think, is not far from over, and the L brand stock continues to slide.
Kathy.
There was an interesting report out this week from the Ohio Alliance for Innovation and Population Health that put gun deaths into some really good perspective. They found that over the last decade, there are 500,000 years of life lost to people killed by firearms.
Wow. And Jesse.
Obviously, it's been a miserable week for the city of Dayton, but I was really heartened to see people putting things like Post-it notes with, nice sayings and supportive sayings in the Oregon district, just showing the resilience of that city.
Yeah, they've done the reporting out there has been incredible. Dayton Daily News, WYSO, the public radio station in Yellow Springs, done terrific work. Speaking of reporting, Jesse and Kathy soon will be colleagues, as Gatehouse, the owner of the Dispatch, will be merging with Gannett, which owns the Cincinnati Enquirer. However it turns out, I do hope this merged organization will keep reporting in Ohio as it is right now and look at serving the public as well as their profits in the years ahead. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I think. Also, we're on our website, wosu.org, where you can see each episode on demand. For our crew, for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.